Welcome to the Doktor O'Kay show for Monday Night Raw from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, which means the show was at 4 in the morning. Wow, lively crowd for 4 in the morning. Very impressive, Riyadh. Very, very impressive. Where our main headline tonight is just keep targeting the weak link. But we'll get to that in a little bit, so instead, let's start off with the first match and just keep staring at your partner instead of tossing out your opponents. So yeah, we had a 15-woman battle royal to determine the #1 contender for the Women's World Championship, and we have to start with a what were you thinking to Jade and Bianca. Wow, ladies, why would you do what you did? So, they were in the Final Four. Jade and Bianca both tried to throw the other two competitors, Lyra and Io, over the top rope, but clearly both of them held on. But for some reason, instead of trying to take them out, it was Jade and Bianca who decided to stare at each other, maybe thinking they were going to fight each other. But regardless, they didn't go after Io or Lyra, and instead they just kept standing there, and then those two finally fought them back. So, not very smart, ladies. I can't believe that is how you ended up losing this one, because Io is the ones, and after an incredible back and forth battle on the apron against Lyra, well, it was Io who hit a German suplex that finally caused Io to fall off and hit the floor, so Io is your new #1 contender. For Lyra, she is the 2s, and that's because, well, she got 2nd place. But it's also because she mostly just managed to survive this one. She had no eliminations and was rather invisible. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't get any bonus points for getting eliminations. And Jade and Bianca are the 3s because after Jade and Bianca stared at each other, it was Raquel who ended up grabbing Bianca's braid. And even though Jade came to her rescue, Liv got up on the apron, and then both Liv and Raquel were able to toss out Jade and Bianca, even though they were not even participants in the match. Of course, those two were not at all pleased with Liv and Raquel, and they chased them off. So I guess we'll have to see what interaction those two groups have going forward. And there are just too many other competitors, so we'll say everybody else is the 4s, and there wasn't a lot of headlines here. It was the most even battle royal of all time, with 11 different women getting 1 elimination, and only Bianca, Io, and Sonya Deville managing to get 2 eliminations. So, I don't know. There's not really much to say about that, with no one dominating this match. But I guess the most fun part was when Katana Chance was able to fend off an elimination for at least a little bit when she saved herself and walked her way with her hands back to the ring. And even though we would hoped that would have been great for Katana, well, Io then kicked her right back out and eliminated her. So, very sad for Katana here today. And with all the 15 competitors, there are just too many records to read off, but we will note that Io goes to 3-1 in multi-person singles matches, which is more than anyone else on the main roster in the women's division, as she had just won that Fatal 4-Way on Friday Night SmackDown and had won a Money in the Bank qualifier back in June. And since everything is legal in a Fatal 4-Way, of course, Liv and Raquel do not pick up an STF. But before the match, it was Jade and Bianca meeting Liv and Raquel in the middle of the ring, and Liv got under Bianca's skin so much that Bianca ended up slapping Liv right in the face. So surprisingly, Bianca will pick up her first fine of the year. And I guess pretty much any battle royal is quite entertaining, so even though Jade and Bianca really blew it this time, we will give this an okay. Then in our second match, we just keep audibling out of a touchdown, as it was Xavier Woods who tagged himself into the match just when Kofi Kingston was about to go for a Trouble in Paradise. This, of course, led to another New Day argument and a War Machine finisher to get the War Raiders another win. Well, the War Raiders are the ones, and they continued to show some hard-hitting offense, but admittedly, they were mostly just opportunistic to take advantage when the New Day crumbled, and they got yet another victory. And the New Day are the twos, as they were even arguing before the match, talking about their prior match last week. And unfortunately, that spilled over into this match, because even though they showed some good chemistry early on, when Woods decided to tag himself in and audible out of that Trouble in Paradise and into a limit break finisher, well, that is the thing that cost them the victory. For the War Raiders, they have now won all 3 tag matches since their return, and they remain the #1 contenders for the World Tag Team Championships, while the New Day has now lost 4 out of their last 5 tag matches in any type of tag, and they dropped a 4-5, 1-1 in traditional tags. So, since the New Day just can't get on board, we've seen this happen way too often now. This is definitely not okay. Up next, we just keep unmasking your flaws as Chad Gable tried to rip off Rey Mysterio's mask as Rey was just attending to Zelina at ringside, but Rey got the better of it, kicking Gable in the face, which led directly into an Operation Dragon. So Dragon Lee is the ones, as this was an even and athletic affair, and he was able to land that double stomp off of the top rope and a sit-out powerbomb, but he took advantage at the end with that Operation Dragon to get the win. But Chad Gable is the twos, and he kept up with Lee the entire time, and after a cliffhanger DDT, he put his feet on the bottom rope to gain some leverage, but Zelina was there to rip off the legs from the bottom rope, but that led to Ivy Nile locking in her Dragon Sleeper on Zelina, which she only let go when Rey came out. But of course, as we said, that cost Gable in the end after he tried to rip off the mask, so Gable takes yet another loss. For this one, there is one STF. We're not going to give Zelina anything for knocking off Gable's legs, as he certainly deserved that, but Ivy's retribution will get a fine, which is her 2nd fine of the year for that Dragon Sleeper. And so Dragon Lee has now won 2 matches in a row, and he goes to 3-4 in one-on-one matches, while Gable has now lost 5 out of his last 6 one-on-one matches, and he falls to 4-7. So this was pretty entertaining, as the Saudi Arabian crowd twice gave it "This is awesome" chants, but it was just a bummer of a finish that Chad Gable simply did not need to do, so we will just give it an okay. And that takes us to our main headline and the main event, where we just keep targeting the weak link, and that is exactly what Damian Priest did as he attacked Dominic Mysterio early and often and survived a tsunami to eventually hit a South of Heaven chokeslam to become the #1 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. So Priest is indeed the ones, as he immediately went after Dom even when he rolled out of the ring to start the match, and he even allowed Sheamus to take all the time he needed to hit 10 beats of the bow run on Dom. And after Bronson Reed appeared at ringside, he tried to take out both Sheamus and Priest eventually survived a Death Valley driver and a tsunami and even a 619 from Dom to recover and intercept Dom for a South of Heaven chokeslam for the win. And Sheamus is the twos, as he got a rare "Let's Go Sheamus" chant after landing 3 straight Irish Curse backbreakers on each of his opponents, and then he also ate a Death Valley driver and a tsunami from Reed, but he was not so lucky, as he then also got hit with a frog splash from Dom. So Seth Rollins is the threes, and he was about to put this one away after he landed a pedigree on Dom and then went for a stomp, but before he could go for it, he saw Bronson Reed out of the corner of his eyes, so eventually after fighting Reed, he paid for it by getting tsunami'd through the announce table. So it looks like Rollins will not be done with Reed anytime soon. And of course, Dom is the fours, and pretty much everyone made fun of him throughout the show, saying that there were 3 good competitors and then also Dom. And I guess that proved to be right, because in the end, he could not even get a win after the frog splash on Sheamus and the 619 on Priest, and he took that south of heaven. So Damian Priest bounces back from his loss to Dom, and he goes to 12-4 in all singles matches, while Sheamus is now 0-3 in multi-person singles matches, but is still above 500 at 8-7 in all singles matches. Rollins goes to 0-2 in multi-person singles matches and is just 500 at 3-1 in singles action. And lastly, Dom also goes to 0-3 in multi-person singles matches, and of course, he has a terrible record at 3-11 in all singles matches. So this was perfectly fine, but the total interference from Reed really messed up the flow, which is not what you want to see in a #1 contenders match. So yeah, this is not okay. Beyond the mat for Raw, we had the Wyatt Sicks continue to show their dual technologically advanced and technologically impaired nature, as they were able to hack into the feed all the way in Saudi Arabia, but yet somehow are still just using VHS tapes that have a whole bunch of scratches in them and just don't have a clear feed. So I don't understand how they're doing that. Nonetheless, what we saw on that VHS tape was the Miz apparently tied up with tape over his mouth from parts unknown, as it looks like the Wyatt Sicks has kidnapped the Miz and is holding him hostage. But when the Miz finally got his tape removed, he pleaded to Bo Dallas to let him go and that they really want the final testament. But Dallas says no, they do not want the final testament, they want the Miz. And that in itself is a little weird. That would be like a 5-on-1 attack. I don't know why they need to only focus on one person. And on top of that, the Miz, I mean, what he did to R-Truth was not cool. But man, that certainly doesn't need to be a kidnapping from turning on R-Truth. Wow. That's going a little overboard, which we have seen before from them, as remember, they bloodied and almost killed all sorts of 20 to 30 people on their very first night on Monday Night Raw in backstage. So I thought we had turned a corner from that, as they righteously took down Chad Gable and American Made before just letting them go, and now American Made is back to just doing whatever they want. But fortunately they lost tonight. But now they're just sort of regressing back to this barbaric behavior, so I don't know what to make of this. This is just really bad. For now, we're gonna have to give this a 1-month suspension, but once we learn more, we may have to turn this one right into a termination. For now, we need the authorities to get on this and try to find and help the Miz. Just imagine what Maurice and the kids are thinking right now. Wow, this is not what needs to be done to an A-lister. You can imagine what sort of news and publicity this must have beyond Monday Night Raw. Well, for this awful circumstance that The Miz is in, we have no choice, but this is getting a double okay. Because guys, why can't you just ask for a match? If you really want to beat up The Miz, just, show up on Monday Night Raw and beat him inside the ring. Well, in much better news, after Sami Zayn spoke to the Saudi Arabian crowd, Jey Uso came out and thanked Sami for helping him out at Crown Jewel, but then asked if his haluva kick to Reigns was on purpose. But before Zayn could answer, Jimmy came out and said that it clearly was on purpose. However, Sami shut down Jimmy, saying that it was always you. Because when things got a little rough, it was Jimmy who kicked Zayn in the face, then it was Jimmy who kicked Reigns in the face, and it was Jimmy who kicked Jey in the face. And to that I say, well, he got it right 1 out of 3 times. Zayn is a little bit more forgiving than me, saying that Jimmy is not a bad guy, he just makes bad decisions, to which I say, nope, he's a bad guy, he learned from Roman, he needs to get out of the way. Sami, you need to stay away. However, Zayn said it felt like old times when the 4 of them surrounded Solo in the ring, and he said it felt pretty good. However, he smartly said that he just couldn't do it any longer and said that, "I'm out." However, Jay tried to reel him right back in by calling him his family, calling him Sammy Uso, and calling him my brother. So that looks like Sammy's gonna be pretty susceptible and cave into Jay and probably show up on SmackDown to speak to Roman Reigns. Sammy, I plead to you, brother, please do not do this. Keep doing your own thing. Stay on Monday Night Raw where you belong, and then go for those tag team titles with Jay only. However, because Zayn was so spectacular in his SmackDown of Jimmy, for tonight only, this one's getting a double okay, but I'm really worried about Sammy's future. And Gunther was surprisingly contrite, saying that Rhodes was not unlucky and not undeserving, but in fact was the better man. Wow, where did that come from? Further, he said that there were 3 capable competitors in the Fatal 4-Way main event, and also dumb because, true, can't argue that. And finally, he also turned to Kaiser and said that both of them need to do a better job. So I don't know if this is turning a new corner for Gunther, but it might be the first steps of an attitude adjustment. So to see where this is going, I guess it's gonna get an okay. And if you missed the recap from Crown Jewel and also from Friday Night SmackDown, be sure to check out all of the okays and not okays right here. And I guess since this is a pretty good first step towards Survivor Series, we will give tonight's show an okay.